Well, let's go now to this Friday's Focus Report. France's annual agriculture fair ends on Sunday in Paris. For 10 days, the country's farmers and food producers will have showcased their skills, trade and prize-winning stock. But behind the scenes, the French farming industry is slowly splitting down the middle. While a growing number of consumers are turning to organic food and supermarkets are increasingly catering to that trend, industrial livestock projects have also been multiplying across the country, as we discover in this report by our colleagues at France 2, voiced by Josh Vardy.
From the farm of 1,000 cows to laying hens crammed into boxes and pigs who can't move and never see the day. Controversial industrial farming has recently been spreading across France. But how much demand is there for food produced using these methods? In the La Creuse region of southern France sits one of the largest mega farms in the country, nicknamed the Farm of 1,000 Veal. Two recently built sheds currently house around 400 young male cattle bred by 45 farmers.
Yeah.
Come, over here. In this enclosure, there are 12 bulls.
These 12 young male cows have about 4 meters square each, as per European requirements.
Il faut qu'ils puissent bouger, mais dans une certaine limite.
They have to be able to move, but within a certain limit. It's better for their growth. They use up less energy.
Ce sont des animaux heureux?
Pour moi, oui.
Yeah, I think so. They all have a place to lie down. Good enough for me.
Not everyone shares this point of view. One of their buildings burnt down 2 months ago. The police said it was arson. Nobody was hurt, but the attack comes at a time of high emotions around these farming methods. Protesters have been criticizing these farming conditions for over a year.
The problem is that this is intensive farming, because there are animals confined in a reduced area. It's off-ground intensive farming, because they aren't grazing. There's no real animal welfare here. They control their diets to make the animals grow as quickly as possible. They can put on around 1.5 kilos every day.
Gilbert Marzeau says these animals are not ill and have a healthy diet free from GMOs.
Il n'y a rien à cacher là-dedans.
There isn't anything hidden here, so you see the straw for fiber and for their cud. These small yellow grains are made from corn, wheat, and beetroot pulp, and they can eat it whenever they want, whatever they need to maximize their growth.
Pour optimiser au maximum leur croissance.
The animals come to this feeding center at an age of around 8 months. Before that, they're born and raised at farms like Ketty Moulis. These young cows are soon to be delivered to another country to fatten them up.
They're generally for export, mainly to Italy, several hours in a truck. We're just next door. This feeding project has been a stroke of luck.
These methods have been used for some time among egg producers. Jean-Philippe Nallet raises laying hens. In this building, there are more than 125,000 of them, all on different levels. Chickens that never see the daylight.
The cages are fitted out. They have perches, as you can see, on 2 heights. They're 150 centimeters wide and 3 meters long. Here, there are 58 per cage.
Today, 70% of eggs eaten in France come from this type of farm, but they could soon disappear. That's down to consumers, who are increasingly choosing to buy organic or free-range produce.
Well, for more on this, let's turn to our guest. Léopoldine Charbonneau is director of the French branch of CIWF, Compassion in World Farming. Hello, thank you for being with us. Now, as I see it, there are 2 main factors at play on this issue, legislation and business. We'll start by looking at cold cash. Obviously consumers hold the power as far as the business side is concerned. Are they made sufficiently aware of these practices to make an informed choice?
No, they're not. That's the whole point, and that's how factory farming develops. Is because they're being told that it's a modern way of producing, and that it's totally fine, and it's a cheap product. Apparently cheap product. It's not actually, and that it's available, and then you can have a lot of it for a cheap price. So, but it's not the case, because we know that factory farming has impact, obviously, on animal welfare, on the well-being of animals, which is obviously that they should be fed and in good conditions inside and outside. But it's much more than that. It's also that they can have their natural behaviors. We're being led to believe that these products are cheap. Actually, we pay the price at the supermarket, but we also pay the price in subsidies, European subsidies, and also in health costs, because we have antibiotic resistance developing, very much linked to factory farms, and also a large use of pesticides to produce a lot of crops to feed these animals that before were fed on pasture. So it's not a cheap product that comes out of factory farms.
So one alternative, of course, is organic farming, but can everyone afford organic?
Well, that's one alternative is organic, obviously, but you also have free-range options that may be cheaper, but yet respect both animals and the environment and the farmers themselves better. I think it's also what kind of agriculture do you want, and where you want to encourage consumers to go to. And we can make organic or free range cheaper by switching subsidies and encouraging certain types of production. Also means that you may want to have more good quality meat or good quality products and eat less of them for meat anyway.
Well, as you're saying, there clearly is a trend for organic and free-range products. But why, in that case, are new plants being built for intensive farming?
Well, intensive farming is a dominant model in France, for example. 80% of animals are intensive farms. It's chicken laying hens that we've seen, chickens, pigs, 95% intensive, rabbits, 99% intensive. So it is the dominant model. It is now, as we've seen in these pictures, that is now moving to dairy cows and meat cows. So that's a new trend. Also, part of it is because consumers are not well informed. When you buy meat at a supermarket, you don't know where it's from, apart from when it's organic. Otherwise, you don't have any idea. You don't know. Whereas for eggs, for example, you have method of production labeling, which has clear codes to tell you if an egg has come from a hen in a cage or free range. You can see it, and there we can see that this very simple method of production labeling has allowed the market to shift, creating value for farmers, but also consumers can buy what they want and they know what they're buying. And I think that's really essential, and that's how we can also make consumers move, is by just informing them.
So that's the example. Now, moving to the main factor, that's legislation, of course. Where does France stand on the issue compared to other European members?
Well, all European countries apply European law, which provides for some species some minimum regulation to protect animals, for example. But it's minimum regulation, and it doesn't ensure animal welfare and to be really at the center of the end product. So it's a minimum legislation. France has often chosen to apply these minimum rules with some level of interpretation to suit the local needs. And some other countries have decided to go beyond the minimal legislation and have stricter regulation, which is not the case of France. For example, in the Netherlands, sows are kept in cages for less during their gestation period for less time than in France, and that the minimum requirement. So some countries have decided to go beyond. Same, for example, for pig farming in Germany. Traditionally, it's been very, very intensive. Now they're developing animal welfare labels and also giving extra money for farmers who bring their pigs to slaughterhouse with a tail on. The tail on, it shows that the pig has been in good farming conditions, where it's been able to search the ground and has not been biting other pigs' tails. So we can see other countries are moving, and we should learn from them and adapt our methods. And it depends from one species to another. Some are more intensive, some are more less.
So briefly, if you would, isn't the key then in Brussels to changing those minimums, to raising those minimums?
I think the key, Brussels introduced some minimums that we didn't have, and that's a basic, and that's very important. It doesn't exist for all species. Rabbits have no minimum specific legislation, and they're crammed into tiny cages. And that's what we're working on, and actually there's a vote at the Parliament next week on that. So we're hoping to move that. So yes, Brussels has a role to play. It has had in the past, and hopefully for rabbits will be the case. It is reluctant to go beyond, but some countries are asking to raise that minimum level. France is not one of them, but some other northern countries, let's say, are asking for more, because there's a societal request for more animal welfare, which always often linked with human welfare, farmers' welfare, and environment protection.
Léopoldine Charbonneau, thank you very much for having spoken to us on behalf of Compassion in World Farming. Thank you.